Hey,
Hey!
looks like we're on live. We're live on part
We are
2
live.
of 442, I think. Or is this 441? No, it's 442, right?
42.
My
Okay.
video is so far behind. Like,
It is.
But is the
442.
audio like still okay?
no, I don't think the audio is lagging. Just the video is lagging significantly on my end.
Are you sure? Because I asked if it was lagging and then it took like 5 seconds before you'd answered.
All right.
Well, we'll try. We'll see what happens here. Yeah, we're going to give it the old college try.
Stand by.
Okay.
Try one other thing.
Okay.
All right.
So, folks, if you were here for part 1, Steph was having, well, she wasn't having, she forgot her charger for her computer. Ran out of juice, so to speak. And then she went out and was able to buy a new charger. Yeah, she's getting all juiced up. Unfortunately, now I think a lot of the people in the hotel are probably sharing that high-speed Wi-Fi that she's using.
Yeah.
So
I don't know
Always.
that there's anything high speed about it. Yeah.
no, there never is. Hardly ever
No.
anyway. I don't know. Korea seems like, don't they have like the highest speeds of anywhere in the world?
I don't know, but it's pretty, it's pretty darn good down here.
Yeah, I think that they have the reputation for having some of the best internet around.
Yeah.
So, yeah, not having any issues at all with your. With
Hey,
your
I'm just
signal.
excited that there's actually power at the hotel here because there's so many trees down in
Oh,
Salt
really?
Lake right now.
Oh.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
there was a huge windstorm on Tuesday.
Oh, you were
Tuesday.
saying something about it was like hurricane force winds.
Oh yeah, like 70 to 90 mile an hour winds
Wow.
for like a couple of
Wow.
hours.
Yikes.
Yeah, it was just a crazy, not a lot of precipitation with the storm, just a lot of high winds. I was out with my brother kind of in our little break here and we went over to a place called Liberty Park and I'll post some of those pictures, but it's crazy. There's huge old trees down all over the place. It's a mess. Yeah,
That's not good.
there's still quite a few people without power too.
Not good at all.
Nah.
Okay, so we kind of covered Steph and where she is. She's in Salt Lake City. Oscar and everybody else that is watching our part 2, and that's why she has the different angle on her webcam. But you know what? That webcam in your device is really nice. It's good. Oh, until I just said that, and then all of a sudden the color balance changed.
Well, it depends on where I sit and how
Oh yeah,
close I can get
Rick
to
was having the same issue with the color
microphone.
balance changing all the time, and
Yeah, this
Yeah.
does the same thing.
Okay. Well, anyway, we should probably start so that we can knock out part 2, and then we can all get on with our lives. So, yep. All right. So I'm going to hit Rick's sound intro music. If you're ready, Liz. Okay. Hey, you know what that music means? From his mobile studio in the Republic of Korea, world traveler, airplane mechanic, Breitling cognoscenti, fitness hound, and international air freight captain, it's Miami Nick. It's Miami Rick.
Miami Nick. I like that.
There are just too many. There are just too many.
Combination of Nick and Rick. That's good.
Let me try that again. Gosh darn it. This is one of those days that I can't seem to get much right. But we're just going to pretend that nothing went wrong there. Okay. Hey! I recognize this intro music from his mobile studio in the Republic of Korea, world traveler, airplane mechanic, Breitling cognoscenti, fitness hound, and international air freight captain. It's Miami Rick.
Hey, everybody. Just got off my big old jet airliner. Happy to be back with you all.
Awesome. We're so happy that you could make it. So we're doing a two-parter today so we could get you on the show, and because we have some news and feedback and we wanted to hear some of your expertise regarding it. So first, before we do that, Rick, tell us, what have you been up to since the last show?
Well, I've been still in Korea. This is home away from home now, apparently. Had a couple of
Went
super
out looking for a new house.
yeah, really. Ended up in Korea. Made a right at Albuquerque. Apparently, you're not supposed to.
Always left. Always left.
Exactly. Always a left.
Always go left.
Exactly. But no, good down here. I had to deal with a couple super typhoons. A little on the windy side, but everything worked out fine. And just doing the standard Seoul to Taipei to Nagoya and then back here. 3 legs overnight. 3 pilots on board, so it's a little tough when it's just one captain and 2 FOs. Because I basically have to stay in the seat the whole time. The FOs get to swap around.
3 is company 2.
Exactly. But it's good. Good. Happy to be back and looking forward to another great episode of the APG.
Excellent. Well, we're happy, as I said, that you're with us, and glad that the weather wasn't too bad on this particular day of flying. You talked about the typhoons last week. You kind of skirted around them getting into Korea, and then I guess it must have affected your trip the subsequent days.
Yeah, a little bit of stiff wind from the west coming into back into Incheon into Seoul. Mm-hmm. Had a nice steady 30 to 40 knot crosswinds, which made it good practice. It's a good thing that we practice crosswinds in the simulator the way we do, but it was good. Nice hand flying opportunity.
So does that 767 handle well in crosswinds like the 74, or not quite as well?
Oh yeah, it does. I mean, and the nice thing about the 76 is that on the 76 you really have to be flying sideways to even get the engine, the nacelle, close to the runway to be able to hit it on the 74. Just the 5-degree bank was enough to actually strike a pod. On the 76. It's a lot more forgiving.
Oh, good.
So it's but I mean, but there's a kind of a certain place where you just don't want to go too much into a side slip, kind of wing low method, if you will. These things are better to just, and when the wind is that strong, it's just better to kind of kick out a little bit of the crab to just to not side load the landing gear that much,
right?
But still landed in a crab because especially when it's gusty, to keep that engine from hitting the runway.
Well, Boeing says that all their products, except for the Long Beach products, are fine landing in the full demonstrated crosswind in a crab without even decrabbing at all. So that's what they say anyway. So there you go. Well, I'm going to be flying a Boeing product.
There you go.
Made in Long Beach. It's not a Boeing product. Anyway.
Don't land it in a crab.
Yeah, I'm not going to land it in a crab.
Not advised.
No, not advised. All right. Well, let's move on. Try to knock out a couple of news items. And let's start with the first one left over from earlier today. And this is the Jazz DH-8C at Toronto. This happened in May of 2019, so about a year and a half ago. A Jazz de Havilland Dash 8 300 was performing flight 8615 from Toronto to Sudbury. Am I saying that right? Sudbury. In Ontario, Canada, with 54 passengers, 3 crew. They'd flown to Sudbury, but had to enter a hold due to weather before the crew decided to return to Toronto, where the aircraft landed safely about 2.5 hours after departure. It was a long flight to Toronto, but they left Toronto. One of those. Sometimes that happens, Anyway, so they thought, well, glad this day's over. While taxiing to the apron, a fuel truck drove into the aircraft, causing substantial damage to the aircraft, believed to be beyond repair. Too many B's in there, including nose, left fuselage, left hand propeller, as well as to the fuel truck. Fuel leaked, however, no fire broke out. 5 occupants of the aircraft, including both flight crew, needed medical treatment at the airport. Ooh. 3 of the injured were taken to hospitals. I believe the the captain had some kind of hip injury because that's where the fuel truck hit right there on that side of the cockpit. So the reason why we're talking about it, because we did cover this when right after it happened last year, but now on the 2nd of September, the Transportation Safety Board of Canada released their final report. And let's see, the probable causes were the limited field of view to the right of the fuel tanker driver's cab caused by the front elevating service platform and its structural elements, along with the condensation on the windows, resulted in the driver being unable to see the aircraft in time to avoid the collision. By the way, it was dark and it was raining, and I think there were some other limitations to visibility. It may have been a little foggy as well. Wow. And there was also reflected light that, as we know, any of us who have gone, well, even if you've just driven at night on a rainy night, you understand what that means. When you have lights hitting things that are covered with water, sometimes it gets tough to kind of see where you're going and such. And apparently the Jazz Dash 8 didn't see the fuel truck at all until it hit them. And it spun the thing around. Remember we were talking about this? I don't know. I don't think, Rick, you were with us at the time.
I remember
when we were
talking about it, definitely.
Yeah, we were trying to figure out, because we saw the airplane and the way it was positioned in relation to the fuel truck, and we're going, I don't understand how that happened. So it basically turned it around 120 degrees. And, and it hit the nose to begin with, and I think the tail swung around and hit the fuel truck on the other side. So it was kind of weird.
It was a pretty significant impact.
It was.
Was the driver of the truck, was his name Murphy at all, or
yeah, Captain Murphy? Yeah, Murphy's Law, right? He I don't think the truck driver received any injuries. I think he was okay. Wow. But anyway, so let's see, I'm going to read from the second news article from nationalpost.com, because they kind of summarize this pretty well. Panic passengers ignoring safety instructions in a mad scramble out of a plane after it collided with a fuel truck near the runway of Toronto Airport caused many of the resulting crash injuries, the Transportation Safety Board found. Collision last year between a Jazz passenger plane and a truck after landing at Pearson. 15 people were injured. Okay, so I was reading before from the narrative just right after the incident, so apparently there were more. Some lawyers probably contacted them. Many of them because frenzied and fearful passengers disregarded direct instructions from the crew as well as safety signs, even threatening the lone flight attendant. Apparently with a full load of passengers, 50 passengers plus a couple of lap children, I think 3. So there were 53 passengers back there, and there was only a requirement to have one flight attendant. Can you believe that would have been tough, especially in this situation where you're the only one and the passengers are disregarding your instructions, and they're basically getting hysterical in the back of the airplane. And many of them self-initiated evacuations while the engines were still running.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
So it's really kind of a little minor miracle that nobody ran into one of the propellers out there. Yeah. 2 passengers were hurt. Let's see, one woman was injured because she removed her seatbelt and stood before the crash, even though the seatbelt light was still on, and she was told by a flight attendant to buckle up. She was thrown to the floor in the crash and lay blocking an emergency exit. So folks out there, if you're traveling and the airplane's still, you're not at the gate, don't get up, because something like this could happen.
And even if you think you're at the gate, you might not be at the gate.
That's right.
So keep your seatbelt on.
Yep.
Like if the aircraft comes to a stop for a while.
Yeah.
Maybe open that window shade.
What?
Next to the window.
Open a window shade? What are you talking about, Steph?
I know.
That's crazy.
Who does that?
I don't know, buddy. Really. 2 passengers were hurt after opening a rear emergency door and jumping directly to the tarmac while the propellers were still spinning against safety directions. One passenger threatened the attendant to let him out. Others tried to retrieve carry-on baggage before leaving. We never heard that. Causing delays and blocking others, including babies. Speaking of the babies, I believe that one was being held by, or one passenger was holding, I think, 2 babies. Let me try to find that area here where they talk about that. But one of them went flying out of this person's arms.
Jeez.
The other flew out and hit the seat back in front of them and then fell to the floor. And then I think another one was in some kind of a baby carrier, and I think that baby was okay. Yeah, it was a mess. And, people self-evacuating or not, responding to directions from the flight attendant, threatening the flight attendant, and then finally, grabbing their stuff before getting off the airplane. I think it took like more than 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, I think, or close to 3 for everyone to get off the airplane. And of course, all this is supposed to happen in 90 seconds or less.
Right. Minute and a half, right?
Yep.
Wow.
What? Liz, I can't believe you said that. She said they should have left the babies behind. Oh, that is not good. Okay. I think Liz is going to be on this part of the show. Okay. Yeah. So that's the final report. Pretty much mostly passengers screwed up. The pilot really wasn't faulted because it was hard for him to see. And they really didn't give the fuel truck operator much blame either. It was like one of those freak accidents where they couldn't see very well. And yeah. So there you have it.
Well, I was. That's actually happened to me. Well, not that bad.
Really?
One day we were flying from Sao Paulo to Rio de Janeiro, and then from there, I think we were going to may have been Miami. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And we landed in Rio, and we were gonna have the fuel truck come out and refuel us. And I was it was my leg up to wherever it is we were going, and I was in the I was in the flight deck loading up the FMC the flight management system and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden I feel the airplane shake more than usual, because when these freighter airplanes, sometimes when they're loaded and unloaded, they shake because the unit load devices kind of slam against the support, the floor supports, the cargo supports along the floor of the jet, and so that makes the plane shake and buckle a little bit. But this thing was more than I'd ever felt before, and I'm like, well, they're having fun loading this thing. So I went back down to load the FMC, and then the other FO that was with me, he pokes his head into the flight deck and he goes, "How'd you like to lay over in Rio de Janeiro?" I'm like, "Yeah, that'd be great. Well, why? What happened?"
What happened?
Well, the truck ran into the engine, so he was backing in to go underneath the wing to hook up with the fuel receptacle under the wing there. And he misjudged the distance from the back of his truck to the engine, and he hit it.
Just keep backing up until it sounds expensive.
Yeah.
Exactly. And he poked a hole right through the translating sleeve of the thrust reverser, and that was it.
Well, it can't cost very much.
No, it was very, very costly. And I tell you, it's one of those things where we all go downstairs to see what the heck happened. And then people slowly but surely start showing up. The truck operator, he's got his head in his hands like this.
I'd be running away. Run away!
Goodness, I lost my job. And then everybody starts showing up from the fuelers, the fueling company, airport personnel, airline personnel. And at the end, 20 minutes into that, we had it was a group of people taking pictures and documenting and stuff. And we were going, well, where are we going to go for dinner?
Yeah.
So,
anyone want a beer?
Exactly. It was sad, but it was one of those happy accidents. So
yeah.
Hey, not as bad as this though.
No.
Yeah. Luckily,
much less.
Doesn't sound like anybody
severe.
was injured on your particular.
No, not at all.
Oh boy. Oh well. The next item here is now, Rick.
Yes.
This is not the company you fly for, but it's very similar. It's Atlas Airlines, a 767 that was taking off out of Hawaii and on a military charter flight. And Liz, if we have some video, and I believe that we can still continue to talk over it. Yeah, so looks like some kind of a Halloween House of Horrors or something going on here. There's some video of the window just aft of the right wing, and you can see it's pitch black, and then all of a sudden the whole interior of the cabin seems to be lighting up because there is fire! Ah! It's, here, wait, I forgot to play the suspense music. Well, they can't run for their lives. They're stuck in an airplane. But let's see. This says here from the ABC7news.com, terrifying video captured by an airline passenger shows what appears to be flames outside of the cabin as the plane's pilot makes an emergency landing. The video was recorded aboard a military chartered flight as its engine reportedly caught fire after taking off from Honolulu, Hawaii, Saturday night. Minutes after leaving Hickam Air Force Base, the pilot declared an emergency engine failure and safely returned to the airfield. The Air Force control audio revealed. The passenger video shows a pitch black cabin before a flash of light is seen from outside the window and a muffled explosion sound is heard. And I'm thinking, this sounds a lot like compressor stalls to me. And apparently that's what happened. So I'm sure that they... Now, if you look at the comments from... I also have some information from the Aviation Herald, and people, armchair pilots, like to get in there and make really intelligent comments. Not at all. And I was looking through here with interest because I noticed that one of the commenters goes by Miami Dick.
It's my alter ego.
And I was thinking, was that you, Rick? Did you make these comments? I don't think so, because
it wasn't.
Miami Dick, and I understand the reason why he's calling himself that is because he seems to be that, his last name. He goes,
quite the D, huh?
Wrong checklist. Go back to the sim. So in the article, Simon, and I don't know how he knows what kind of checklist they ran, but in the narrative of the Aviation Herald article, he says that the crew declared an emergency on tower frequency and subsequently remained on tower, reported a right-hand engine CF6 failure due to repeated engine surges, compressor stalls, with engine emitting bangs and streaks of flame, and they did the severe engine damage checklist and shut the engine down. So maybe could you tell us what you think is going on with this whole situation?
So that's the thing. I mean, I honestly don't understand where Simon gets, or where he picked up, what checklist was done in this situation. But anyway, the what people don't seem to understand or realize here is that if there's a maneuver that we practice, this is the one. Whether it's during a annual check ride or recurrency training, proficiency check ride or recurrency training. This is done over and over and over and over, especially in one of these twin engine airplanes. And so there are basically two checklists that deal directly with this kind of issue. One is the engine fire, severe damage or separation, and the other one is engine actually I had it here, surge or stall.
Mm-hmm.
Hang on a minute. The actual name of the checklist is engine limit, surge or stall.
And they probably started with that one, I would imagine.
Yeah, but the main difference between the two is that in engine severe damage separation, obviously the engine has severe damage, and how do you know, or how can you tell that the engine has severe damages? So you look at your engine instrumentation, and if you have a lack of information from your N1 or your low compressor section of the engine, your N2 or high compressor section of the engine, or loss of oil pressure or oil information altogether, then you can assume that the engine is seized up, and so the engine has severe damage.
Mm-hmm.
The engine failure, the engine limit, surge or stall it's just that, a compressor stall, and really all a compressor stall is that the linear flow going through the into the front of the engine, through the compressor section of the engine and out the back. That flow has been disrupted somehow, and so you no longer have smooth flow of air through the compressor to the combustion chamber and out the turbine, and so the engine it's like it has the hiccups. So the idea here is to try to reduce power to the engine to a point where the flow of air stabilizes and you're able to recover that engine. Well, you're not going to be able to recover it altogether. But the idea here is to try to bring it back so as to maintain the systems associated to that engine online. I'm talking about, hydraulics, electrics, and air.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if the engine is broken, then you obviously have to shut it down. Now, having, gone through this very scenario countless times. And, keeping in mind that there's a certain degree of startle factor, I think that the crew ran the correct checklist, because otherwise they wouldn't have done it.
Right.
And so
Yeah, they could probably see things that obviously you can't see when you're looking on the internet at a web page. At the
or just
description.
at YouTube video on vertical video out a window in the dark.
Oh yeah, I can tell exactly what's
Super
happening.
helpful.
Yeah, I don't need to see the engine instruments.
Exactly right. And so that's why it's like people, if
Come on,
if
people.
you don't know what's going on, then
Come on, man.
Yeah, exactly. Don't impugn the characters of the guys that actually had to deal with this emergency firsthand, because it's just not right. So I think these guys did a fantastic job. They got the situation under control. They shut the engine down. They secured the engine. They started the APU so that they could have just the thing here is that, as I said, when you shut the engine down, then you are giving up electrics, hydraulics, and pneumatics for that engine. So you have to make up for that using the auxiliary power unit, which is necessary for ETOPS, or extended twin engine operations over a long spans of water. ETOPS flights, you need an APU, so that's going to be online for you. So you just turn that on, and you're back to having 2 generators, and the only thing you have to do really is do a normal landing with flaps 20. And the reason why you use flaps 20 is because that's in case you need to go around. You go from flaps 20 to flaps 5 instead of going from landing flap to flap 12. But anyway, just the lower flap setting, because you need to come in a little bit faster. A little bit of rudder, for that dissimilar yaw, which I think the similar thrusts, which I think we're going to talk about a little bit later on, and just land it normally. No big deal. It's just another day.
It is. I think they did a great job. And
absolutely.
By the way, Hickam Air Force Base is Honolulu International Airport. It's just a little area off of the, the runways that they're landing on and taking off on are shared with Honolulu International Airport. I just think it's funny sometimes reading these journalists' things, they make it sound like it was an Air Force base that they took off from. Well, yeah, sort of. They share it. Yeah. Okay. Well, very good. Thank you, Rick, for informing us of what was going on in the cockpit, as far as we can tell.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I know you weren't there. At least that's what you're claiming. All right. Let's go with some feedback. Timely feedback.
Incoming message.
Number 9. Okay.
You want to tackle this one?
So I'm thinking now. I've never seen this before. This was sent in by Greg Peterson from the Big Ass Fan Company. Good morning, crew. I was listening to episode 440 on the way to work this morning, and I have a question. Not being a pilot, I was wondering why the left engine is considered the critical engine on the King Air in the first story. And I don't know. I don't know anything about this stuff, so I'm going to let the other 2 hosts that are here on part 2 cover this for the very first time that we've ever attempted to answer this feedback.
Definitely.
And that's the story, and we're sticking to it.
Yeah, trust me, that's the truth.
So what I'm actually going to do, and I don't know, just get those rickets ready, because I'm sure I'll start off here and Rick's going to jump in, and this is going to take a long time. Because I'm actually going to back up, and I'm going to talk about a few things that we need to know about first to really talk about, a little more complex when you got 2 engines. So
school us, Steph. School us.
One engine first. So you're thinking about propeller-driven aircraft. The majority, basically all, are going to be rotating clockwise if you're viewing it from the cockpit. Okay, so that's important. So what's happening? You've got your propeller as you're viewing it, on the left side coming up, going down on the right. So what it's doing, it's taking a bigger bite of the air on the downward side. So you're getting increased thrust, which actually creates more of a yawing tendency to the left. So more thrust on that right side as you're viewing it, turns everything to the left. So this also creates a little bit of increased lift on the right wing and a banking tendency to the left. So let's see what else I want to say about that. So that's P factor, or propeller factor. And there's a whole bunch of other things that are going to make a propeller-driven aircraft want to turn to the left. 3 more, actually. So the second one would be torque effect. So again, you get that clockwise spinning. So propeller is going this direction. And then, can you guys still hear me? It just got really quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Clockwise spinning. So think about kind of if you were winding it up with a rubber band, the aircraft that's attached to that is going to roll in the opposite direction. So left turning tendency. A couple more that are maybe a little bit more difficult to wrap your head around, but spiraling slipstream. So you have air that's I can't say spiraling. That's really hard.
Spiraling.
Spiraling around the aircraft that's coming off of the propeller. So if you think about the plane moving forward, you've got air coming off the propeller, moving backwards, spiraling around the aircraft. It's actually going to push on the back of the tail and drive the nose of the aircraft to the left from the way that the air is coming around the aircraft. And then there's another one, gyroscopic precession, and I should probably just skip over this a little bit. It's a little more noticeable in tailwheel aircraft, and it has to do with the propeller being basically a big spinning disc. So as you lift the tail up in that tailwheel aircraft, you're basically applying a force to the front of the propeller. But because it's acting like a gyroscope, the definition of gyroscopic precession is that that force is going to actually be applied 90 degrees in the direction of the
It would be helpful if you had a gyroscope with you in your room, and then you kind of...
And you get like a hula hoop
like
or
that?
something. Yeah.
You don't have that?
So, no, but you're just going to have to trust me on this, that
Okay.
90 degrees, you're going to feel the force from the right in this case because of the
I trust you.
spinning, left turning. Okay.
Gotcha.
So, a lot of left turning tendencies here on a propeller driven aircraft, or at least one that's rotating clockwise.
Okay.
So, let's add in a second engine. So now you don't have the propeller directly in front of the aircraft. You have them offset to either side, obviously. Well, most cases. We're going to talk about that anyway. So light twins. So let's go back to that very first one, P factor. So thinking about P factor, you've got the... Go ahead.
Do you want me to talk about...
Do you want to jump in?
No, I don't.
Do you want to jump in?
You got it. Liz is telling me to shut up.
So again, that's that increased amount of the descending blade having the longer, or let's go back to just P factor for a second. And the the descending blade takes the bigger bite of air, so you have increased thrust, so you have that left turning yaw tendency. So if you think about the engine being if you're looking towards the front, on the right versus on the left. On the right side, on the right side, as those propellers are going clockwise, the arm is longer on that right side. So it's actually going to create that thrust farther away from the center of the aircraft. And that actually creates a quicker turning effect. So going back to Greg's question, why is the left engine critical? If you lose your left engine and you just have that right one spinning, because of that quicker turning tendency, you're going to feel that a lot more than if it were the opposite way around. If you had your left engine still turning and your right one was the dead engine, you wouldn't have as quick of a turning motion. Let's see. So that's P factor. Anything else I want to say about P factor? Let's go next to torque. So again, that's the force where you have your propellers turning and your aircraft wants to spin in the opposite direction of the spin. So the effect is that you get a roll to the left, and it's same reason, more pronounced on the right side, again, because of the longer arm of that motion. We can talk about spiral. I'm never going to say that right tonight.
Let's don't talk about that because it's too hard to say the word.
Spiraling slipstream. Spiraling slipstream. I'm just going to pretend like I can say it correctly.
I'll fix it in post. I'll put in, perfect pronunciation of it.
Definitely not going to fix it in post. Let's talk about actually if the left engine is running in this case. So what's happening is that actually increases rudder effectiveness because of the way that it'd be easier if we had like a diagram or a video or something, but you think about the air coming off of the propellers towards the back of the aircraft. From the left side, it actually increases rudder effectiveness. So if you reduce or remove that, if the left engine is inoperative, you don't have that stabilizing effect if it's just the right side that's functioning. And then we're going to talk about one slightly different factor. We're not going to talk about gyroscopic precession because that's not as important here, but accelerated slipstream. I still can't say slipstream, which is kind of similar to the spiraling slipstream, but it's still, because of the airflow moving backwards over the aircraft, it's going to give you more rudder effectiveness if the left engine is turning still, as opposed to the right engine. So that is, in a nutshell, all of the reasons why the left engine is considered the critical engine. We're talking about if the left engine is the one that fails or is not functioning appropriately. So
I
Rick,
agree completely,
jump
Stephanie.
in
So basically, that's exactly right. So basically, really, what we're talking about here is going down basics here. Is you're basically talking about the length of the arms, and it's your standard second class lever where the fulcrum or the pivot is the vertical axis of the airplane, right? Where the airplane yaws left or right. But the force applied is the downgoing blade, because that's the blade that takes the bite into the air that produces that forward thrust. And then the arm between the pivot or the fulcrum to the downgoing blade on the right side is longer, because the downgoing blade on the right engine is further away from the center of the aircraft than the downgoing blade on the left side, right? So the arm moment on the left side is shorter than the arm moment on the right side. And so since you have a longer arm moment, if you lose that left engine, the amount of rudder required to maintain that directional control is greater, making that engine critical. So anytime you talk about critical engine, you're really talking about the amount of rudder required to maintain directional control based on that dissimilar thrust. And why that is important is because the rudder really is a wing. And by deflecting the rudder, all you're really doing is you're creating sideways lift. And anytime you create lift, you create drag. And so the more rudder you put in to maintain that directional control, the more lift you create, but then you create more drag as well. And you find yourself now with only one engine. So it's kind of a balancing act, which is why it's so important that if you lose an engine, you maintain at least that it's called what was it?
So we threw out a couple other terms when we were talking about the feedback originally.
VMC, that's what it was.
There's VMC and VYSC. So
exactly. But exactly right. So that red line, that red radial line on your airspeed indicator, that's going to be your VMC line. VMC stands for velocity minimum velocity for control. So as long as you stay at that line or higher, you're gonna have enough rudder to counteract that dissimilar thrust and maintain that directional control. The second you find yourself below that, no matter how much rudder you put in there, as long as the engine remains at full power, you're not going to have enough rudder to counteract that, and so you're going to roll over. And it's actually one of those things where, as a student pilot getting your multi-engine rating, you actually go through what's called a VMC demo, where you get very, very close to that VMC condition, and you are taught how to recover from that. And the way to recover from that is by reducing power to the engine that's working and increasing that airspeed above that red line to give you that margin of safety and that airflow across the rudder back there to allow you to stabilize your flight path and have enough rudder authority to maintain directional control. So really, as we were saying, really, when you talk about a critical engine, you're really talking about the amount of rudder required to maintain directional control.
Yeah.
So I'm confused because you guys were talking red lines, and I thought we were talking about blue lines the other day. Are you doing that on purpose?
We were talking about blue lines. Nope.
Are they different? Are they different lines?
They are different lines. So blue line is your single engine best rate of climb airspeed indicator. So if you're looking at your airspeed gauge if you're flying a light twin, you've got a red line, blue line. So that's, for practical purposes, you really want to accelerate to that speed before you leave the runway environment in most light twins. Because, so think about this, you think if you lose an engine, we've got two engines, so you're just decreasing your performance by 50%, right?
Nope.
No, it's worse than that, right?
It's like 80%.
Yee.
Oh, yeah.
So that's significant impact on your climb performance. And I forget what the the exact FAR is for it, but if the aircraft is less than 12,500 pounds, they're actually not required to have single engine takeoff and approach climb capability.
It's FAR
So-
25.
25? Okay.
So that's exactly right. And you know what? And even commercial airliners, we have critical engine as well. Not so much in the 7.6 or the 777 or the 7.8 or the 7.5, but on the 7.4 you do, because if you lose an outboard versus an inboard, the amount of rudder required to maintain directional control with an outboard engine out versus an inboard engine out is going to be greater. And so anytime you need more rudder to maintain directional control,
Critical.
that's gonna define what your critical engine is. So really, critical engine, amount of rudder. Think of it that way.
Okay. So, Greg, what do you think? You understand now? You understand what critical engine means?
So one other point, actually, so a lot of the training aircraft for initial multi-engine training, they will sometimes have counter-rotating props, which eliminates the
That's
need.
cheating.
Eliminates the whole
that's
concept.
too safe to do. Come on. That's
So
no
in that
good.
case, you have propellers, your left one is turning clockwise, right, counterclockwise. And that way you don't have that descending blade further away from the center line of the aircraft on one side versus the other.
Right. The center of thrust of the rotating propeller disc is going to be equidistant to the longitudinal axis of the airplane, and by default by the vertical axis of the airplane, which is where the axis around which the airplane yaws. So
correct.
That's basically it.
Is it okay for me to play the crickets now?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, excellent job. Thank you very much for taking. It's not an easy concept to explain.
And it's not easy for someone who often gets their rights and lefts confused. I know which one I mean, but my brain tells my mouth to say the wrong one sometimes.
Yeah, I hope that when your brain's telling your leg which one
No,
to push,
that's
you
never
got it.
confused.
Okay,
I do
good.
the same thing with east and west too. So if I'm ever giving you directions and it doesn't seem quite right, it's
Oh,
probably
that
because
explains a lot.
Now,
I thought you just didn't want me to get to your house.
Well, that's actually the case there. So,
and
Okay.
there's actually that's a good point you bring up there, Jeff and Steffi. So how do you know in the heat of the moment what foot or what rudder to use? So we have this
so
this
think about those
instrument.
turning tendencies. Yeah.
Exactly. We have this instrument and the flight deck, and it's the slip and skid indicator, which was there's several types of designs and I guess models to this little instrument, but the basic gist of it is you have a semicircular glass tube filled with fluid with a ball that rests at the bottom of that semicircle with two lines, demarcating what the center point of that tube is. And so if you are yawing one way or another, that ball is going to, go outwards either to the left or to the right. And so if you have the ball going to the left, what you have to do is you have to step on the ball.
So you basically I know that one.
Ball, step on the ball.
Ding!
And
Ding, 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 ding.
and center
Step
it
on the
back
ball.
in. Exactly right. And if it goes to the right, you step on the ball and you center it back in. So that's basically what you do. And then in propeller-driven airplanes, it's always a good idea to never ever turn into the dead engine. You see, I used to always think of it as raising the dead. So basically, you raise the dead engine. Always raise the dead engine. Don't ever
About
turn
5
to the
degrees.
Don't ever turn to the dead engine, because you might not be able to. You might not be able to roll it back out.
Yeah.
Because remember, as Steffi was saying, you no longer have that slipstream over the wing, providing that added laminar flow over the aileron to provide that lateral stability, which if you go into a bank with a dead engine and going down, the low wing, you're putting yourself in a precarious situation. If you don't have the energy or the speed to pull out of that, you might not be able to roll back out. So
I see a lot of other folks in the chat room using the the often taught mnemonic of dead foot, dead engine. And if you think about why everything we just talked about with all of those left turning tendencies. So if you're just think about your left engine being the affected engine. So your right engine's producing all of those left turning tendencies. So you're going to have to press on your right rudder to counteract all of that. And you're not going to do much with your left foot. So, yeah. And vice versa. But
don't forget to trim.
Yeah, trim.
That's
true for all the time, but it's even more critical in this situation, right?
Absolutely right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm so glad that I let you, Steph, and Rick answer this question because, if I did it, I would have looked. It would have been ugly. Yeah,
you would have tried to confuse us, probably.
No. It would have been very, very clear and concise, and everybody would go, "Wow, that's why he's the airline pilot guy."
Well, it's like you said. It's I think.
So that's the view from this side of the cockpit door.
It's something that's tricky to explain. Without having a visual on it, I think, because for me, that's a very visual concept. So it's hard to do on an audio podcast or even, when we're sitting here doing our live recording and StreamYard and can see each other. But, I'd like to have the little airplane model and have my brain visualize exactly what's going on.
Well,
Mike is asking when was the last time I flew a twin prop aircraft. It's got to be 20 years, coming up on 20 years.
And I was thinking about the last. I've never flown a twin engine propeller airplane, only a single engine, and that was close to 40 years ago. So that's why I didn't attempt to answer this question in part 2.
I got my multi-engine rating in a Piper Seminole.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Is that one of those things? That's one of those airplanes that's cheating, right? Have the counter rotating.
Yeah.
No.
No, the Seminole is cheating.
Oh, the Seminole.
The Seneca is. I did mine in the Seneca.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. Well, Greg, I'm going to see Greg tomorrow at the ATL. So I don't know if he is able to hear that great explanation from Steph and Rick, but I'll tell him to listen to the show. I'm not going to explain it to him. He'll just have to listen to the show. And I'm going to, Liz says, just make sure you let him know that he's banned from sending in any further feedback to the show.
Colin is saying that some aircraft have auto rudder boost to alleviate rudder loads in the event of an engine failure. And that's true for
777 does, right?
777 has a system called TAC, the Thrust Asymmetry Computer. So basically, the fly-by-wire system is constantly comparing the N1 or low pressure compressor speeds of both the right and the left engine, and anytime there's more than a 10% difference, the rudder goes in automatically to counteract that. And the cool thing about the 777 and the 787 really is that it does it both in the air and on the ground. So if the engine fails on the ground, on the 777, it'll only go in, to not even halfway. It'll only go in enough to help the pilot and recognize which engine failed. But on the 787, it'll go all the way in on the ground and in the air, and it'll keep you going straight down the runway until you have a check right. And then at that point, they'll do what happened to this aircraft in Hawaii that we talked about, a severe damage or separation, where the engine will completely either separate or the fly-by-wire system will lose the input from the thrust management system, and it won't be able to compare N1s anymore. And so when that comparison's not there, the TAC will kick off, and you're all of a sudden by yourself controlling rudder. But the rudder authority on the 777 is unbelievable, because you have to think about the fact that each engine puts out 115,000 pounds of thrust. So the top of the rudder on the 777 is single hinge, and the bottom part of the rudder is double hinged. So you actually have a lot of rudder authority, and you barely go in, halfway of that. That's basically enough to counteract the similar thrust.
Big rudder,
big engines. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if you have any more questions about critical engine and P factor and all that kind of stuff,
you should probably talk to a CFI.
It's or look it up on Google.
An MEI.
Wikipedia. There you go. Let's quickly move on. Try to knock out at least one more, maybe a couple of more feedback here. Dave sent us this. Again, it's mostly for Rick. He sent it to Rick et al. don't you fly into and out of Narita? If so, have you noticed him? And who's this him of which listener Dave speaks? And he sends a link to a BBC.com video, a little mini documentary about this farmer that I guess his father refused to give up the land on which he was farming. That happens to be pretty much right in the middle of the Narita International Airport property, but it's not really technically Narita's property. It's the farmer's property. And his son, when his father passed away, came to take over the farm, and they've offered him like lots of money, like close to a couple of $1 million for him to give up the property. But he's stubborn, and he says, nope, I'm going to continue to farm this land. You know anything about this?
Yeah, well, that plot of land was given to the father by the Emperor of Japan himself. So, so he's not that's going to be in the family for forever, I imagine. Mm-hmm. And it's quite interesting because it's so the what we're talking about here is a little plot of land that sits on the northeast side of the airport. So as you come into land on 34 right or 16 left, which is the short runway, usually the runway they use for landings. And as you taxi back, I'll get a snapshot of this, and then I'll send it over to Jeff for the show notes if he so wishes. Mm-hmm. As you go down on taxiway Bravo and you join taxiway Charlie, there's an open area there where this farmer lives. And it's really funny because as you come out, as I was saying, as you taxi down Bravo and Charlie to join, just enter the main airport complex there's this big sign that says "Down with Narita." And
okay,
he makes his feelings very, very well known.
Okay,
he doesn't mince words, the guy. Mm-hmm. And I respect that, and it's his land, mm-hmm. and it is what it is. But I tell you what, I mean, it's if there ever was a plot of land for a nav geek, that is it.
Oh yeah.
Because just the amount of traffic and the kind of airplanes that you see landing there all the time, and especially when it gets a little bit windy, it's I tell you, I'd have a terrace up there, and just chairs and hammocks and beer kegs, and we'd have a good time.
I'm going to try to share one of the photos in this in the show notes here. Let's see if I can find it. Pardon me, Liz? Yeah, there you go. Liz was thinking, why doesn't this guy rent it out to all of us for an APG meetup over there in Tokyo?
Imagine?
Ooh, that'd be fun.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah. Okay, here, let me get that. It's probably too small, so
it's kind of tiny.
Yeah, let me.
Yeah, that's what she said.
Yeah, here we go again. Let's see.
Oh no.
Oh well, I guess this is large as we can get it. I'm sorry, honey.
It's tragic. Wow.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but there you go. There's the little man. There's the little man.
It's a sad situation.
It's a sad situation. I can see if I can find that. Here we go. It's sad. It's sad. It's been a while since I played that one. Anyway, so I watched the little. It's maybe 10 or 15 minutes long. It's not a long video regarding this little mini documentary about the guy. So check it out in the show notes.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Well, let's shift down to 14. Now, we were talking about, was it last episode or the episode before? I think it was the last episode that we were talking about the company, Island Helicopters, I believe, the owner of the helicopter that had Kobe Bryant on board and crashed in Southern California. And the fact that they were basically, I think,
countersuing
ATC because something to do with,
just
flight
for allowing
following.
the flight to happen. Yeah. Basically,
yeah.
They shouldn't have let that happen.
So somebody sent in an anonymous person sent in some feedback regarding this. And this is a trained and, professional air traffic controller. And he said, I just heard your discussion on the Kobe crash. The lawsuit will go nowhere if the FAA has an attorney worth $1. The flight following was officially and legally terminated when you hear radar service terminated. The pilot then got a special VFR transition clearance through a Class D. The controller in the tower was not providing flight following, traffic advisories, and safety alerts, but was responsible for ensuring separation with other aircraft. When he exited and went back to approach, he was never re-identified and services were never reinitiated. If he were and radar services were being provided again, the VFR pilot is always responsible for terrain and obstruction clearance in addition to their responsibility to see and avoid other airplanes. The pilot was in over his head, and it cost him his life and others. Also worth noting, while the pilot was instrument rated, the helicopter operation was only authorized for VFR flying under Part 135. Filing an IFR flight plan with paying customers was not a legal option under their certificate. I suspect they spent a lot of time pleasing high-paying customers and skirting the VMC cloud, that's a visual meteorological condition, cloud clearance and visibility requirements, or VFR actually. It's a sad day when they try to blame the controller for poor decision-making, intentional flight into instrument meteorological conditions, and blatant disregard for the safety of their passengers. So that is a controller's point of view regarding this countersuit.
I agree. Actually, it's pretty black and white there. You know,
Yep.
So sort of nowhere to get lost.
Exactly. Okay. What do you think, Liz? Which one should we do next, do you think? Okay. 15, Ralph sent in this. He says, a few questions. Actually, it's only 2. As a flight engineer, are you actively monitoring anything during takeoff and landing? I was just thinking of the sideways acceleration and deceleration you would be enduring at that time. And number 2, on a transoceanic flight, how far out are you when you're out of range of VHF radio? And how often do you need to check in? Is it via HF radio or CPDLC these days? Keep up the great podcast, Ralph. So number 1, the flight engineer question. Now, are there really any airplanes anymore that have flight engineers?
There are a couple of DC-10s
maybe like
around.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, a couple of DC-10s.
Let's look at the Antonov 225 Mira or whatever probably does, and 124.
That's a whole town that flies those.
Yeah, they probably have several flight engineers.
Like 47 people.
Big crew.
Yeah, exactly. But on just Western made aircraft, but you still have, like I said, the odd DC-10 here and there, and then actually the odd 74-200 still around.
Okay.
Not that many anymore. But so the flight engineer doing takeoff and landing, believe it or not, he's able to pivot his seat.
Yep.
And sit
and slide it kind of diagonally.
Exactly. Slide it diagonally and actually sit right at the foot of the center pedestal. And the flight engineer is crucial in the takeoff portion of the flight, because he is the one that sets takeoff thrust. And so if you look at old 747 throttle quadrants, you'll see that so you have the thrust levers, you have the top portion, which is what the pilots use. Obviously, the very front of it's where the reverse thrust levers are, and then at the very back end of the thrust levers, there's a set for the flight engineer, which extend to aft, and that's what the flight engineer uses to set power. And so, during the takeoff run, he's not going down the runway sideways.
He's facing straight ahead. It looks like he's basically in a jump seat between the pilot and the co-pilot, and he's looking straight ahead, looking at the engine instruments, setting power. Now, I think this is an airline thing. I was a flight engineer at Acme on the 727. We didn't have that kind of throttles layout that you were talking about there, Rick, with the 7.4. They were just regular throttles, and what we would do, I think that we would end up setting the throttle. So the flight engineer at Acme Airlines, when I was doing the job, didn't touch the throttles, but he or she was monitoring everything and not looking outside and doing anything, all the other things that we were doing as pilots in the left seat and right seat. But it's a critical job, a lot of things going on. But pretty much the panel on the side facing sideways, hydraulics, electrics, fuel, air conditioning, that kind of stuff, pretty much is set in a certain way for the takeoff. And then that he can kind of, as Rick just said, rotate his seat facing forward and kind of slide that track so he or she is between the two pilots sitting in the left and right seats.
Exactly right. And then the flight engineer really, as Jeff said, is just basically a systems manager. Nowadays we have a fancy electronic ICAS, engine indicating crew alerting system, and dark cockpit and ECAM if you're flying Airbus, where the system just basically works itself out. And on the newer airplanes, really, like the triple and the 787, certain systems like the pneumatic system. So if the system detects that there's some kind of fault or a pneumatic bleed duct leak or anything like that, it just basically fixes itself. That's how things work now. But back in the day, that's what the engineer did. And it's actually, I've talked to many an engineer, and one of the things that they were really, really proud of really was being able to sync the generator and marry up the generator to the electrical system of the airplane without anybody noticing, without making that electrical jump.
It was difficult to do.
Oh, absolutely.
Liz and I were talking about this a few days ago, and that's one of the things I really remember, the most challenging thing. So you're starting engines, and the electrical power most often is on the auxiliary power unit. But once the first engine is started, then you're actually turning little knobs, and I can't remember if you adjust everything until the white light is steady, or if it's like blinking, and then you kind of adjust things so either it's completely out or completely on. I don't remember which. Yeah. And then you'd actually hit the switch to bring the generator online. And it was very, very important that you made sure that it was in sync with the auxiliary power unit generator, because if you screwed that up, it would just completely dump all the power. And then you could have you could actually damage the what is it called? The constant speed drive, the CSD, and the generator if you did it wrong. So, and then we have, 3 engines. So every time you start an engine, you have to, again, you're tweaking the little knob and making sure that the light's on or out, whichever, and then hitting the switch at the right time. And as Rick mentioned, that if you're really good at it, and you've been doing it for a while, you can almost do it the way that most modern airplanes now do it automatically. And
that's the thing. We just take it for granted. It's funny. You start an engine, and at 50% N2, the APU automatically disconnects, and the generator takes over, and you don't even notice it. And it's hard because when you talk about power generation in an airplane, you're talking about not only the voltage required to run the systems, but you're also talking about the frequency. So 400 hertz. So you have to marry up the 400 hertz from the generator to the 400 hertz from the APU, and disconnect them just the right way, and then marry up those 400 hertz to the electrical system and marry that up, just trying to make it as seamless as possible. And I don't know how you guys did it back then. It's like, my hat's off.
Pure magic.
Unbelievable. Those are the things that really just, wow. You take that for granted now, and you go, man, we have it easy compared to the guys.
Yeah, but you're trained on it, and everybody, everybody can figure out how to do it. It's not that difficult, but these days it's so much nicer. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is good advice. I should go get one of those.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm still trying to get back our stream. Here, I finally got it. When I went full screen with that image of the farmer at Narita, I lost my Chrome browser. I didn't know where it was. I knew I was still connected, though. I could hear everybody. Let's see. My flight engineer only has one job: open the beers. Brent. Hey, Brent.
Yeah.
Good to have. It's been a long time no see. That's awesome.
Exactly. Good to have you
here. Yeah. That's true. That was the main job of the flight engineer. The second part of the question, Rick, you're, I believe, most qualified to answer.
Just lost it here. Let me see. So it was
Transoceanic
Yeah.
flight.
Oh, transoceanic flights. Oh, how far
Versus-
out are you when you are out of range? So VHF is very high frequency. So it's basically line of sight. Obviously, the higher you are, the more reach you have. But you're talking about between 200 to 250 miles, perhaps something in that range. And usually, what I do when you're coasting in at the end of an oceanic crossing, you'll usually start seeing the green needles or the VOR needles start pointing at a ground station. And so when I see that needle wake up, and then I see the DME, so the distance measuring equipment readout on my RD and my radio magnetic indicator, or up on the screen of my navigation display, I know, okay, the VOR is picking up a signal. I get a DME readout, so that's VHF as well at the site. So it's very possible that I'll be able to contact some kind of ground-based ATC controller down there, and usually, it works out. As far as HF, we do use HF every once in a while, although nowadays CPDLC is required. CPDLC stands for Controller Pilot Direct Link Communication, and that's required equipment on oceanic on the NATS, on the North Atlantic Track System, required between 29 and 41, 290 and 410, kind of like RVSM, the exact same levels, and you're not allowed to fly in that airspace without it. No, actually, let me see here. I believe CPDLC is required from 35 and up. And somebody's gonna fact check me on that, but I'm pretty sure it's from 35 and up, because I know that if you don't have CPDLC, you can fly under that level, and you're still legal to fly in the North Atlantic Track System. But still, the beauty of CPDLC is that you're in constant communication. So the aircraft is in constant communication with what's called an ATSU. It's an air traffic service unit, and the ATSU is going to interrogate the aircraft, and the aircraft is going to pass on information to the ATSU automatically. You don't have to do anything. So all you really do is you log on to CPDLC, to the ATSU, to the air traffic control facility, and when it comes time to switch from, say, Gander to Shanwick, the switch is automatic. You get an automated message letting you know that you are now in CPDLC contact with Shanwick, and the controller will send you a message with an HF frequency, and do an HF radio check, a cell call check, selective call check. You'll call him. He'll call you on cell call. The dinger will go off, and then you know that your HF radio and your cell call is working, and that's the last you'll use the HF for the night. So the entire thing
so
is
nice.
CPDLC. So it's a beautiful thing.
Not like the old days when I was flying the 141 across the Pacific and Atlantic and Indian Ocean, when we had the HF radio on all flight. Listening
I
to
got
that.
I got to experience some of that too. It was,
That's awful.
we didn't even have cell call on ours. So
Right.
It was,
Yeah.
On the old 76.
And we didn't either.
Oh man.
Didn't either. Yeah, that's probably 50% of why I have, or 50% of my hearing loss can be attributed to listening to the HF radio. Anyway, great questions, Ralph. Thank you for that. And it looks like, unfortunately, we're out of time for part 2. We have still a lot of feedback from y'all that we'll have to move over to the next episode. And so in the meantime, if you want to learn more, if you're new to the APG and you want to learn more about the community and the crew and plane tales, a little bit more information regarding the plane tales that Nick prepares, and that's a separate page on the website. We have the APG library. Our librarian Tiffany takes care of that for us. Merchandise, information about the coffee fund if you want to be a financial supporter of the show. And again, that's airlinepilotguy.com, the website, and we are on the social medias as well.
We are. Check us out on Twitter. We're at APG Crew. You can also head over to Facebook, facebook.com/airlinepilotguy. And I haven't done anything with Instagram recently, but one of these days I'll get back to it. We're also at APG Crew there. We'll see you on the social medias.
Excellent. And we're also on Slack. And let's see if Hillel is able to. It's funny. He's always in the show. Hey, Hillel! Hillel, come on. It's Slack time.
Okay, but I'm dripping wet.
Well, that sounds like a personal problem.
APG listeners, please join us on our Slack team. Slack is a communication, coordination, and sharing platform that works on your mobile, laptop, or browser. On Slack, we share news and ideas. We suggest episode and plain tales topics. We plan events and meetups. To get into the Slack team, please email me at slack@airlinepilotguy.com. That's SLACK, Sierra Lima Alpha Charlie Kilo @airlinepilotguy.com. Or send me a tweet with your preferred email address to @Hillel, and I'll send you an invitation. That's Hillel, spelled Hotel India 11 Echo 1, and see you in Slack.
Thanks, Hillel. Appreciate it.
Fire in the hole!
Okay.
Watch out.
Thanks for sharing. Yeah. And let's see. We'd also like to thank our producer director in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. I thought I was going to get it right this week. Scandinavia. Her name is Liz. Thank you, Liz. You're awesome. I think I lost the back channel feed, so but I see you there still in our video feed. So thank you very much for all of your help. We do certainly appreciate that. And until next time, wishing you all clear skies, unlimited visibility, and tailwinds. Take care and God bless.
Cheers, y'all.
See you next time, and hopefully no crosswinds.
Right. Beautiful.
All right.
Now, I actually recorded about half of part 2.
Uh-oh.
So I'll just get the audio from the video, and that'll cover the first half of part 2. I was doing one of my standard things, looking down, going, "Huh, the red light's not on." Dang it!
Gonna be a problem.
Did it again. Not the first time, not the last.
Won't be the last.
Nope. So, hey, thanks everybody in the chat room for hanging out with us. Let's see, what does Brent say? Rick left his airplane knowledge in the parking lot once. I was going to drive around it, but I only had a half a tank of gas.
Guys.
Brent is also Miami Hick. That's
Miami Hick, right?
Yeah.
I was right on that CBDLC thing. As of January 20th is between 29 and 41. So it's 0 to 410.
That must be so nice though, just to have to not, monitor HF or whatever.
Oh,
the whole way over.
Great. You request level changes, weather deviations, all via CBDLC. You never talk to anybody, and it's perfect for an antisocial like me. It's great.
Excellent.
It's like self-checkout, right?
Exactly.
Don't have to mess with people.
Ew, people.
Ew.
Ew.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for staying up late, at least here in the U.S. or the eastern part of the U.S. Kind of getting late. And Rick, thanks for getting up or staying up. You're probably
it's bedtime for me. I've been up
you
for
need to go and get some sleep.
hours.
Oh man. All right.
36?
Yeah.
Dang.
Just standard. That's just how I roll. Used to it by now.
That's awful. And Steph, I guess you're probably going to be up for a couple more hours before you. Yeah.
So really, I should be going to bed now too, but
Well, that's right.
I don't think that's
body clock is probably still on Eastern, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. But that's not going to happen.
Not going to happen, huh?
No.
All right. Well, you be
I think
careful.
there are adult beverages in my near future.
Beer, right, Steffi? That's.
Oh yeah. I did. There's a Whole Foods down the street, about 2 blocks away.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, I ran because I only had like 15 minutes. I was feeling the altitude a little bit already. I was like, whoa.
Probably didn't even break a sweat.
Not really.
No.
It was only like 70 degrees and not humid. So.
And you run like in your sleep.
Running for Steffi's like, I
nothing.
I felt it though. It was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get up early and do some more of it tomorrow.
Yeah, me too. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. With that, we're going to go ahead and end the broadcast. Thanks again, everybody, for hanging out with us in the live
everybody.
chat room.
Bye.